We are back. The Premier League is off and running, and Arsenal has started it off with a win, 3 points in the bag at Old Trafford, 1-0 to the Arsenal. There's a lot of ways you can look at this game, and there is some truth to the negative ones. In fact, probably a decent amount of truth to the negative ones. It feels like we had a very familiar problem in this game, being caught out by a team much better in transition than ourselves, failing to really create much on the left-hand side, and honestly China just being outplayed on the day. So there are plenty of ways you could view this game in a negative light, and I don't want to pretend that it was a good performance because it wasn't. We were sloppy. Man United had a lot more opportunities, and we just didn't look very good for a lot of the match. And yet, weirdly, I do kind of find myself encouraged by this. I don't really know why, because of all the aforementioned things where it just didn't go well. I'm feeling good. I don't know. So we obviously need to do better. This first match wasn't great. And so, we can't keep getting caught in transition like that, even though we did ultimately close down Man United for the most part. When they did get chances and when mistakes were made, Gabriel and especially Saliba was there to cover that up, to make sure a shot was blocked, and when they couldn't do that, Raya was there to make stupendous saves. So there was some encouragement there, and still the amount of shots Man United got we can't do that if we want to be leading a title charge. Also, the lack of creativity, that is probably our most familiar problem from last season, struggling to really get anything done in the attack. We had a few all right opportunities. We actually could have made it 2-0 on a few chances, though none of them were like super clear cut, great opportunities. You still have a feeling that with slightly better creativity or slightly better shots, we maybe could have ended up winning by more than a goal, even though it wouldn't have been deserved if we had. So there is that. We scored on a corner again, and that is just about the standard way that we always win our matches: win off a corner, get the goal. It was a new routine I saw, and that's interesting because that shows that Nicholas Jover is innovating. We weren't as effective from corners in the second half of the season last year, and so there's always pressure to perform, especially in the Premier League when all of the eyes of a lot of the world are always on you. And so even spells like that, where in the second half of the season, despite the really great first half corner kick routines, in the second half of the season they weren't so good. You could say maybe Jover's under a bit of pressure, and so he innovates and we do something new, and it worked out pretty well this time. There's a lot of criticism of Binder, and perhaps he could have been more strong there and gotten a better hand to it, punched it away. There's also talks of whether he was fouled by Saliba. The thing is, this is kind of what we've done under Jover. We exploit those gray areas in the rules. So I do understand frustration with that. But I think it's more just that Jover is very smart and has figured out how to get around rules and exploit loopholes in corner routines. Generally, refs are less strict on corner routines, and so that gave us some leeway to do what Saliba did and kind of get in the way of Binder a bit. But also, Binder probably could have been more strong, shoved him away a little bit more. And because he wasn't, the ball kind of ends up finding its way to Calafiori, who has a very easy header to make it 1-0. And from there, we didn't do too much. I do think we were better in the second half of the game. Man United were getting a lot of joys in long balls to their wingers in the first half, which didn't quite happen as much in the second half. So there was some game management there from Arteta, I think, in changing things around to make sure that we were better set up in the second half to not let that keep happening. Because Man United did get close a few times. Their main issue was they didn't have someone in the box for the most part until they subbed on Shesko, and also that for all of their positive play, I think that they just came up against still a really strong defense and a pretty good goalkeeper. A goalkeeper who always seems to show up at Old Trafford as well. Raya's had some of his best performances at Old Trafford. And that, leading me on to, is where I find encouragement from this game. If we can play like we did today and walk away with 3 points, I don't think that is entirely a bad thing, because that is kind of the sign of a really good team who, with all the quality they have, can play like we did against Man United on Sunday and still walk away with a win. We didn't deserve the win, and yet we got it. and that is something to be encouraged by, I think. We could have lost. And in fact, last season, a lot of times we did end up taking a lead and then losing it. So many points were dropped last season from draws we ended up conceding from winning positions. And so the fact that we didn't concede is nice. I am glad that we didn't do that. And perhaps we were kind of bailed out by high end talent in our defense. That might be true, but we do have a very skilled, talented defense. And that probably is the reason why we didn't lose today. Because, or not today, the reason we didn't lose on Sunday was because we have that really strong, solid defense that can ensure that even when we're not playing well, we've got a pretty good chance we're not going to concede. And so that one corner can make the difference. I thought that Odegaard did a lot more today. Like he made some of those really nice pristine passes that have made me really fall in love with the way he plays, why he's very much become my favorite player, and I'd love to see more of that. I love that he had the confidence to shoot from outside the box because he has scored from outside the box before, and it seems like he's lost his confidence and his ability to score from those kinds of situations. So even though it did end up going straight to the keeper, it was nice to see him have the confidence to shoot that. And some of the passes didn't end up going somewhere, but they did reach their mark. And that was really nice to see. Still, you could say there's improvements needed and probably are, but I did appreciate that. Then we're going to talk about Zubimendi and Gyökeres and why perhaps the system might not have worked today. And I think when I say I'm encouraged by this game, what I mean is it wasn't good, but we won the game, and if we could improve on some of the things we did today, then that's when it can be encouraging. If we don't improve on today's result, then it's not so much of an encouragement because we're not going to win games consistently playing like that. But I think that for one thing, we switched up the system a little bit because we now have a striker that is more direct and will get in the box more than Havertz. And so it is a new style of play, kind of, to play with that kind of striker. And so perhaps we're adjusting to a system that involves Gyökeres now. And at the same time, we've got Zubimendi now, which is another different thing. And Zubimendi, I think, like, Zubimendi didn't do that much. He had kind of a quiet game, and yet some of the tactical changes that happened with Zubimendi are actually pretty interesting to see. For instance, with the wingers not the winger, the Calafiori and Ben White getting forward a bit more because they have the confidence to go forward because they know Zubimendi will slot back into that defensive line. And that is potentially a genuine tactical revolution with Zubimendi that we can now have our hands on. Arteta has been trying to get his hands on someone like Zubimendi for a while. He tried for Bruno Guimaraes for a while and didn't quite get his hands on him. But now he has got Zubimendi, and I think that will be a genuine revelation to the team if we can fully get integrated into that system with Zubimendi and Gyökeres now involved. Gyökeres, I think he didn't get on the ball much. He had a quiet game. He didn't do much with the ball when he had it. At the same time, he didn't get that much service anyways. But one thing I would say is I do think that their defense for Man United looked a bit more stretched than defenses against us usually do. I think that Gyökeres does provide a threat that Havertz didn't, in that he can get forward and defenders are actually nervous about what he's capable of. And so sometimes last season when Havertz was up front, defenders would kind of disregard that space almost because they're not too worried about the threat posed there. But with Gyökeres, they don't get that luxury anymore. And so I think in that sense he did affect the game, but not enough to really have made that much of an effect on it. I appreciate. I don't know. I've kind of been redundant today. It's just so much to improve on. And actually, if I were a Man United fan, I'd be fairly encouraged by the game as well and quite excited about it. But the fact that we still managed to win is nice, and I am happy about that. And I hope that we can put things together and continue on the route to hopefully a league title. I really hope so. I know that it would just be, I really hope we could get that, So I hope that works out. Until then, I'm heading out. 1-0 to the Arsenal, 3 points in the bag, hopefully more to come.